If you have an option of taking a product that is proven by a test or taking a product that is proven by guessing, if you're guessing, you will most of the time be wrong.
Welcome to Built to Last, a podcast from Direct Selling News putting the spotlight on the best companies in the channel. I'm Rob Sperry, and today we're featuring Zinzino, an innovative wellness company that's rewriting the rules of direct selling with a customer-first model and test-based science. In this episode, we'll sit down with Ørjan co-founder of Zinzino, yet went on to build one of the largest organizations in Northern Europe before founding Zinzino in 2005. What makes him unique? He's still actively building in the field as a 5-star global president alongside his wife, Hilda. In today's conversation, we'll explore what makes Zinzino test-first philosophy, customer-focused compensation plan, and distributor ownership model truly built to last. Ørjan, you started in direct selling as a skeptic. So I'm really curious, what flipped the switch for you?
It's kind of like multiple things that happened, but I came into the meeting, I think I was like this, probably my legs tied up like this. And then during the meeting, I was fascinated about the idea that you could make money on your own sales, and then you could build a sales team, then you could make money on their sales. But what totally blew me away was when I realized that, wow, not only that, but I can have a residual. So if those customers buy again, I will be able to make money on this like in multiple generations. After a few weeks, I said, okay, this might be legit, but let me try it. And it was a horrible experience. I couldn't recruit a single person. Like I could sell, but I couldn't get anybody on my team. Then my uplines comes, and that's my two uncles. And they say, well, we have this thing that is better than the thing that you're with. I'm very lucky that it was better. And I spent my entire summer in the new company, 3 months, and I got my first person in. And that was the biggest moment in my life because the circles were working. If you remember back in the old days, we used the whiteboard and we drew the circles on the whiteboard. And now actually the circles worked. It worked for me. No, it was just about getting more circles on the board.
So you start out, you have a struggle, then you said it took about 3 months to get that first customer. After that, let's go through just a little bit of the process. Were you just in one company? Were you in multiple companies?
No, so that was my second company. And then they brought me to the third company. And in that one, I managed to build a team of 17 people in 2 years and 496 customers. And I got a little residual check. And I remember I'd worked so hard. I probably put in 3,000 hours as I was also going to university studying. And then my residual check was $69. And I went, this is when I quit. I mean, this is when I finally get paid. And it's literally no money at all. And then the story goes on. I was saying, no, I don't want to do anything more. And then my two uncles, again, they don't go away. And they were very convincing into getting me into the fourth company.
At what point was this? How many years in?
This was, I'm embarrassed to say, 1996 in September 1996.
Okay.
And I was 21 at the time. And I was very uncertain if I was going to do it. But eventually, their persistence, and I tell this on very many of my calls, their persistence, having me saying no in all kinds of ways, got me in. And when I finally said yes, that's the most important yes up until that day in my life. And if they wouldn't have been persistent, I would have never joined again, and my life would have been completely different. But that put me on a journey. And so 4 years with no results. And then the next 4 years, I built one of the largest teams ever built in the Scandinavian countries. And we passed over €1 million a year in income.
During those 4 years, like you said, you almost quit several times, right?
Yeah.
And then you go on to build one of the largest teams in your specific area. And then at what point did you decide, I want to start my own company?
Now, on that journey of success, it was different because now I was highly successful. It worked for me. It was a fantastic business. But it didn't work for everyone in the team. And I wanted a better model with better retention, with a program that worked for also the little person where they could feel successful. So it was a series of discussions, conflicts, philosophy, differences that led us in the end to buy a division of that company. So I still have the same ID number today as I got in 1996. So I never quit again, but we did purchase a part of the company. And then as that company was failing, and the reasons for that, I probably can't cover all of it, but we were in telecom market in Scandinavia became really brutal. We had to sell off everything or go bankrupt. That was our two options. And then starting Zinzino, we gave everyone in that company the offer of having free shares in Zinzino in exchange for what they had in that company. And then we brought over the database. So that's how we ended up forming Zinzino in 2005. And me and my wife became the major owners because we were the only ones that wanted to put in more money.
As you start on your own journey with your own company, what did you feel like was the biggest thing missing in direct selling that you wanted to improve? And maybe it's not just one thing, it's a couple of things.
Brings me to what did I like with direct selling? I love the personal development aspect. I love that people come in, they've never really heard about how they build their dream, never really understood how goal setting can affect them. They've never done those exercises that we do in so many of the events. And it's transformational for people when they start believing in themselves and knowing that they can do. So I love that part. On the other side, the failure rate, I wasn't really willing to accept the kind of failure rate that we had because it was just too brutal. And then the idea that we would just recruit people, which was what I grew up with, and that customers was a byproduct, didn't make sense to me. So I defined my life. This happened at the same time as I turned 30. So I was a philosopher for a year before I was turning 30. You know, you go through everything. You want to know, what am I going to do with my life when I grow up? I say everything you do in your 20s doesn't matter. That'll be forgotten about. But when you get into your 30s, it matters. Your decisions will be remembered. So that was the process of coming in. I found out that I love working with innovations. I wanted to be a place where we could innovate and where we would never accept the status quo. It's not enough to have 18 months life length on the customers, which we have today. I want to push that to 24, 36. I want to get people when they are newborn and the first box they get when they're a little girl is a pink little box on how to be in balance. And then when they're 102, they're still taking that same product. I want to create that kind of relationship between the customer and the company and keep on pushing that envelope until it becomes as good as we can. And then when it comes that good, then we keep on pushing because it always should be innovation and improvement. That's what we truly believe in. Then I love working with people. Personal development, professional development, seeing them growing from being young boys to becoming men to become powerful leaders. That makes me excited. You know, I thrive up on people developing. And then the last part of it, which is so unique in network marketing, is the equal opportunity. That if I'm an owner in a company and I employ people, there is somewhat of an equal opportunity. But in a company, if we take like a revenue share, maybe you spend 8, 10, 12% on salary. Some companies, it's maybe 30%. But then inside of that pool, the game is rigged. And it's not unfairly rigged, but if you are not the CEO, you are not going to make the same amount of money as CEO, and there can't be 3 CEOs. So it's not an opportunity which is equal to everyone in the company. Then you could say investors and so on, and that we're owners today, so we have a different role than the people in the field. Well, we're stock listers. Again, we try to equalize it as many places as possible, even though there will always be differences in society. But if people put in their time, they dream their dreams, they set their goals, they're willing to work on themselves, become professional at what they do, they can raise up in the compensation plan. And it's not an endless amount of money you can make, but there is no limit to the amount of times you can increase your salary. You can always keep on increasing by building more and developing more teams. And that part, that's direct selling or network marketing for me.
Yeah, I love hearing your passion, and I'm seeing some of the things you guys have done and that you do. And I believe you were a huge visionary in those mid-2000s, in the sense that at that point in time, there were not that many companies that were focused on customers. You made a massive emphasis on customers. Was there pushback on that from the field? Because that was very unique.
Still is.
Okay.
Still is.
Good. I'll let you go any direction you want on that.
So I wrote an op-ed where I said, imagine if there was only 25,000 people in the world. How would your model work? And if you are in a recruit model, you're going to recruit the 25,000, and at the end of the day, your company is going to be the most unpopular company on that planet. Because each time we recruit somebody, we tell them that they can achieve their dreams, their dream life through what we do, that they can have a better career, more fulfilling, and so on. But if you're only having 25,000 people, and everyone is going to be a salesperson and buy products, you're going to run out of people. And by the way, in my opinion, that is illegal and should be illegal. So those places where it isn't illegal, I will work for making that illegal, okay? That's how passionate I am about this subject. Now, if you change that a little bit and you said that the model had 5 customers per person that came in, and whoever had 5 customers would have 3 products. Now, would your model work better? Would you be more popular? Yeah, by the end of the time, when 25,000 people have joined, then you have most customers, and every one of your salespeople have 3 products, and every one of your salespeople then has a profit every month, and you could survive as a company. If it was 25 customers for everyone, well, then every one of your salespeople would not only have 3 products, but they'll have a good extra income, and quite a few people would have a full-time income, because you're not now sharing the money with everyone. Most people then on your planet, or in your world, is just paying, and a few people share the money out of that. And that model is simply better. So why did we do what we did? Because it was better for the people that we worked with.
I know you're really big on innovation. I know in just some private conversations we had about some of your products, you were talking about how you're always looking to improve and learn, and you're very confident what you have. And you said, we don't know everything. We're always trying to improve that. And with that said, you guys launched and started out with coffee. And I'm sure that there were some learning lessons in that. And then eventually, at some point, when and why did you pivot?
So my whole life, I'd been interested in nutrition. I took omega-3s from childhood, probably every day since I was 7, 8 years old. Cod liver oil, very big tradition for that in Norway. Started using nutritionals when I was 14. I was a Thai boxer and did 7 different sports and was a fanatic about exercise. Then my first company at 17 was a nutrition company. And then since that time, I'd worked with nutrition until we founded the coffee company. And when we founded the coffee company, I was so happy. No, I didn't only buy from my own company. No, I bought nutrition from every network marketing company out there. And I had my shelves filled. I was passionate about this. Then I got a phone call, and if they were interested, or if I was interested in meeting a group of innovators, regarding a new product in the omega-3 industry. And I wasn't really interested, but they told me a little white lie. They said that they had developed a way to put 3 grams of omega-3 in a delicious tasting chocolate that I could have together with my coffee. And I said, okay, that's worth going to view it to see if there is something in it. Then I sat through a 2-hour-long presentation where they talked about all the benefits of omega-3. And my mentor in nutrition, he had published about omega-6-3 balance. I knew a lot of these things, and they didn't really catch my attention before in the last 5 to 10 minutes. They said, have you ever taken a test to find out if your balance between omega-6s and omega-3s is serving your health? Is your diet anti-inflammatory, or is your diet actually causing the problems that most people have? And that woke me up. Immediately, I felt, wow, this is something that everyone interested in health would want to get the answer to. And then the second question was, wow, why didn't I think about this? We've sold 100 million euros plus in omega-3s. Why didn't we ever think about doing it test-based? And then the third one was, this will take us 1 million customers a lot faster than what we're doing today. And then I went home from that meeting, came home to my wife, told her all about it, and she absolutely hated the idea. She was like, no way, we have, like, finally, we are growing with a coffee, or life is nice again. We're through that sort of, now you're going to come and mess it up with yet another product. And we fought for, I think it was about 6 hours. And then we had dinner. And she said, well, you can take the test. You can take the product. And if you get well, then I'll consider it. 3 weeks after I started taking the product, I had such large improvements that I didn't have a major problem with normal foods anymore. So I was back just eating everything. And then exactly 1 month after, she took the test.
Wow. And I know you have a massive vision. So let's pretend I'm someone looking at your company right now, and they're asking about test-based nutrition. And I love your perspective and vision on where it's at right now and where everything's headed, because we know more and more with information age and AI, right? And everyone, like, they want to know, does something actually work?
Well, if you have an option of taking a product that is proven by a test, or taking a product that is proven by guessing, I mean, I was the poster boy, interested in nutrition, doing all the right things, taking omega-3s for all of these years. 30 years I took omega-3 nearly every day. The day I took my first test, I took 6 capsules of omega-3, 2 in the morning, 2 for lunch, 2 in the evening. And my first test came in telling me that I was way out of balance. I had way too much omega-6 and far too little omega-3. And I lived a full life trying to have that correct balance. I even knew about it, but I didn't manage to do it because I didn't have any tools to measure it. So if you're guessing, you will most of the time be wrong. I've tested hundreds of nutritionists. By every one but a few that I could mention the name of, failed the test. So people are out there and they work with nutrition, are passionate about nutrition. They're eating healthy, they're vegan for health reasons, and then they take the test, and it's a shock because their guessing was wrong. The test proves that this has to look different, and then 4 months later, when we do the intervention, every one of them gets a perfect score, and now they have the knowledge and power to stay healthy, especially in the area of your cell membrane, which is what we test. It's really cell membrane health that we work with.
Yeah, and I know you have a huge emphasis on, there's the first test, what % actually get to that second test, and then beyond that, you guys have some phenomenal retention numbers, which in Built to Last, we talk about how there's a bucket, and the water's the recruiting. And that's what so many of these companies just focus on. Of course,
Yeah.
there's importance to that.
Oh, absolutely.
But then there's these holes in the bucket.
Yeah.
And you have focused on the retention and plugging in those holes. And I believe that that second test is a big part of that.
Yeah, it's critical. So if we look at our statistics and we look at people coming in without a test and how many months they buy our products versus people coming in with a test, and how many months they buy our products versus people that come in with a test and they do the second test and how many months they buy the product, you go from a normal retention rate, better than average. We still get 5, 6 months, maybe 7 on the ones that just come in without. And then we go far beyond average if you do the first test. And then you go to nearly a lifetime when they do both the test.
Amazing. And your omega-3s, obviously the tests will show that they work. But before the test, when you're talking about how great they are, what makes your omega-3s different, special, unique?
Well, they work. That's number one. So we actually are very focused on the test. I don't want to argue with you. I hope that the product you're taking is fantastic. I hope that you actually have a perfect score on tests. So if I got to test you at any point, I'd say, I want you to succeed. But the likeliness in America where you live is 99.5% that you will fail the test. And that's why it's so important to test. If you fail the test, then please use our products for 4 months. And then after that, take a test again, and we'll prove to you the difference. Now, what is the magic behind it? Well, it is the right kind of omegas in its natural form, broad spectra, combined with olive polyphenols, that is a chaperone to the omegas transporting into the cell so that it doesn't oxidize on the way into the cell membrane.
I like how you led, though, with just tests. Like rather than ripping or trying to get into comparing with other products and your product works or your product doesn't. It's like, great, if you have a great product, that's amazing. Just test, because that simplifies the whole thing where everyone doesn't have to feel like they're scientists, right, or doctors, or explain it.
And I like them to turn into high knowledge, because high knowledge gives you great confidence. And if you have confidence, you're more likely to take action. So attitude, then knowledge and confidence, then a clear reason why you're doing things, your motive behind it, then everyone takes action. So that is a big part of it, is making them into that. But after they gain the knowledge, the masters simplify it. And the simplification is that, hey, if you take the test, that will tell you something about your cell membrane health. There's other direct benefits that is the same for all the products out there. But here, this test will tell you what's your status today. We do a nutritional intervention, and 4 months later, you'll have a perfect score. And if you happen to be one of those 0.5% that does get a perfect score, we'll refund you all the money. We don't need your money because we're looking to just make the entire planet like you. And just one side note, if we go back 50 to 100 years, everyone had that balance in their cell membrane. So this is a modern problem, and we're using a modern food to solve the problem. And the technology of the testing made me able to, as a 30-year consumer of omega-3, to gain control over my dietary habits so that I could live a life in balance.
You said you owned some of those factories. I think that's interesting and fascinating as a visionary, as an innovator, as someone that has a company that's built to last and you want to scale. How has that helped the process for you scaling?
Yeah, so when I started studying then the omega-3 industry intensively after we purchased 10% of this company originally, and then we have a contract to acquire everything within 3 years. And then I cast a vision where the world is going back into balance, and our role in that was to balance 100 million people. Now, when you look at that number, it's pretty big. But it's not that big because there is over 500 million people out there that's already taken omega-3s, either currently or in the past. So the market for omega-3 is the biggest one inside of the nutritional market. So I started studying at the dosage requirement that we give people, how many can we balance? And the fact was that as of today, only about 65 million people can achieve balance. Then we're out of the fish source, and we're out of today's current production of algae. We're out of today's current production of plant-based omega-3s. So that means that my vision is impossible. And that's why I also decided to cast a vision. Because if we casted a vision of going to 100 million customers, we would have to re-innovate how omega-3s were made. Then through a couple of coincidences and a little bit of good work, I would say as well, we acquired a company that is, didn't fully acquire, we bought part of a company that is the number one technology-wise in producing spirulinas. We took that technology, which was already proven to grow the algae 2.6 times faster than the average algae production. So it wasn't only better quality, it was also more value for the same money spent. And then we matched that up with a fermenting bioreactor and layered 6 patents through a process of how we could then take the omega-3 algae, grow it faster, no microplastic, no heavy metals, no PCBs in it, so it's a completely clean source. And then in the process of growing it, we eat 2 kilos of CO2, give back 1 kilo of oxygen to the world, so it's carbon negative, so it's just good things that comes out of it. And then we take this through this cold press process that then does 2 things. It keeps the quality of the omega so that the algae-based omega becomes a higher value than the fish-based omega, even a higher value than the krill-based omega, because what we have as nutrient content beats everything. 0 pollution, which is fantastic. And then cold pressed saved us a lot of money. So the price point of what we're building, we believe that within 2031 will be even cheaper than fish oil. And then we can scale it about 10,000 liters at the time. And there's a fixed investment for every time you scale up. And we believe that over the next 25 years, as we grow our companies, we will fully support our own production of every omega we sell and reach 100 million people. And if the demand is bigger, we're going to produce for everyone else as well. And then we're going to bring this product to 8 billion people. But I don't know if we manage to sell to all 8 billion. Then we need help from everyone else in the world.
Your vision of being a customer-first company, a customer-focused, right, type company, you've matched that with your compensation. And you've done that in a very unique way. That's something I'd love for you to dive into some details on that, because I know you got some pushback, and like you said, you still get some pushback, but I believe compensation plans drive human behavior, and you had a vision for driving the right human behavior from the beginning. So I'd love to hear some specifics and details on that.
It's always saying that compensation drives behavior. So now which behaviors do we want? And then you alter the compensation plan until you get the behaviors. We wanted to have everyone having 25 customers. And it's not necessarily 25 individuals, but it's 25 products sold to a customer for every 1 product that is sold to a partner. So if I buy 1 product, I should have 25 products sold outside of my circle. The secret to it is a little bit deeper, and this brings me back to what I told a few minutes ago. If you have a very poor retention, keeping 25 customers is nearly impossible. If you have an okay retention, it becomes a little bit easier. If you work with something that could create loyal customers, it becomes very easy. So people that work towards getting their 25 customers, in the beginning it's quite tough because you lose customers, but then you have 4, 5, 6, 7 that sticks. Then the next year you get 4, 5, 6, 7 more that sticks. So people that are in their 3rd year do little to keep their 25 customers because now they have loyal customers built into it. And that's what you can, or at that point, you can have a compensation plan that demands a lot of customers. Now, every time I sit down with a new person, that comes from our profession, I have to go through the same trauma of explaining this every time they're launching their business. Why can't I just recruit everyone? And it's the same drama back and forth. And a lot of people don't like our company because of this. But all the leaders that build a business with us, they can never go back to the other world again. Because why would you, when you all of a sudden have something that you know that here I can build a business that lasts for a lifetime, and you know that you're making real differences in people's lives and real difference in the life of the customer, and you're creating a residual income, which was why I started back to the board, the whiteboard, the circles, people selling in multiple levels, getting customers, and them reordering, and that would create a recurring or residual income to me. That was why I started. But if you don't have customers, you work with everyone. So in the recruit model, one of my big objections was, well, I'm working with everyone. That's not a residual income. That's not passive, because it only is the people I work with that are buying, which means that whatever was residual in that plan was the failed people that forgot to quit their out order after they quit the business. While in our model today, 90% plus of the income every single month is from customers that I never met. They don't know who I am. If I go on a flight tonight, we'll probably have a couple of Zinzino customers flying back to Europe on that flight. And they don't know who I am. I don't know who they are, because a customer doesn't go to your website and check out the founders or the top leaders in the company. They just wanted to have the product, and we delivered value to them. And when we keep on delivering more value than we take their money, they'll keep on being our customers for as long as they are on the planet.
I know in my book, Built to Last, I talk about how you'll go through these momentum swings, but eventually when you come out of momentum, you're going to fall to the level of your customer base.
Yes.
And that's why it's so critical. But one thing you said, I don't know if people caught, and I want to reiterate, maybe it's my own interpretation of what I heard. I interpreted at the beginning when you said you created this high customer ratio of 25 customers, of it put a lot of pressure on you guys as well, because you had to deliver with everything on the back end of having great products and great communication, which I think that's another interesting take of, yes, the field, you want them to feel that pressure of, hey, let's build this the right way, but also from a corporate perspective, didn't that put a lot of pressure on you guys to deliver and perform, right?
It does. So it puts pressure on payment methods, website, follow-up systems. And you also, like one of the things that I've learned in sales is that if it's very quick and easy, then people haven't invested a lot in it. They very often drop off. So we say, no, let's take 15, 20 minutes to get a customer, because if they've invested that time and you follow up a few times, they're much more likely to stay through those critical 4 months for the second test. That, if they use a product every day for 4 months, that's driving a very strong habit. And then if they get a second test proving that what they did was the right thing, that habit continues for a very long time. So there is a lot of science into making these things happen. And as a general, I think that we study these things and we want to improve in these things all the time as a company. And then it also is getting the leadership on board, wanting to do the right thing, wanting to create that model, and teaching and training. And the biggest fight that I have, maybe shouldn't tell this, but that is when we have access to data and we see that one of our top leaders, well, they maybe haven't quite their quota of 25 customers. They maybe have been buying a little bit too much of that on their aunt or whatever it would be, or their mother or themselves, and so on. And that is to take that fight with them about the culture we're building. Because if my top leader can't discipline themselves to have the customers, well, then they won't discipline their team to have the customers. Then eventually the culture will be lost. And then we're back to scratch.
Wow, the fact that you guys enforce that is incredible, because it's true. Whatever you do well duplicates sometimes. Whatever you do poorly almost always duplicates, right? You've got kids, I've got kids. It's with that with our kids, and especially with with organizations that you build. Well, you were just talking about your leaders and getting their buy-in. 16 of the top 20 shareholders are leaders building in the field. That's beyond unique. I'd love to hear some of the strengths on how that helps your company navigate through the storms and have that vision of where you guys are headed. And also, I believe you've got people that are in tune on what's going on a daily basis.
Well, it brings me back to that third thing that I figured out when I turned 30, that I like to work with equal opportunity. So the comp plan is equal opportunity. But on the ownership side, it will never be completely equal. Just like in a comp plan, if somebody builds 4 lines instead of 2 lines, the one with 4 lines is going to make more money on the same volume than one with 2 lines. And that's fair because they've done something different. But we wanted to build in a basis into our comp plan where the top leaders are rewarded with shares in our publicly traded companies. So every year, those that achieve president, they get an opportunity to get 200,000 euros worth of shares. And then for every rank they go above that, then next rank is 300, then next rank is 500, next rank is another 500. So they can build their ownership in a company. At the same time as they can invest their money, if they want to own more, they can invest their money and then own shares in a company. So I had a leader council here a couple of weeks back, and one of the leaders that have been with us since 2011, he said, you know what? It's really nice with the campaigns now and like the tickets to the next event, because inside of the ticket, we were sponsoring 1 year of school for a project in India. So we have a school in India, and if you bought the ticket, we would sponsor 1 kid for the year and stuff like that. And we have right now 1,400 students, and it's going to expand to a couple of thousand in the next year and so on. And he said, but I'm out of money because I'm buying all my commissions into shares. So I don't have money to invest in these tickets right now. And he wanted to make 2 points on that. One was that he wanted really to give away a lot of money to that project, but he also wanted to say, my most important thing is not to go and buy a new car or get a new watch or do anything like that. I want to be an owner of this company because I believe in the future of it. So our leadership councils, which we run every week, are very different because it's really a combination between a network marketing leadership council and a shareholders meeting, because all the biggest owners are there. So if we talk about adjustments in comp plan, well, there is a full buy-in on that. If we talk about improving, changing the products, there is a full buy-in because they're also owners. They want the best for the company and they want the best for themselves at the same time. Like what we do with mergers and acquisitions would be impossible, not impossible, but very difficult for us as a company because there would be too much jealousy between people when we're moving so fast with things. But because they're owners, the top leaders go, well, my bonus becomes worth more money next year if we do that acquisition. So I'm good with that. Move on, do that. Opening new countries, even though I don't have time to launch the country, that's fine because whoever launches it, that's going to give me more value next year because I'm an owner of the company.
Well, you just gave a little bit of insight into the mergers and acquisitions. You guys have had, I believe, 8 in the last 18 months. Most of the time, just being frank and honest, they do not work out. And I know you know that. You guys have had tremendous success with mergers and acquisitions. So if you're willing, I'd love to hear a little bit of the playbook. I know that you're very studious. I love how confident you are, but also humble in the sense I know that you've studied books on it. But then also there's some things you just can't study, you got to live through. So tell us, how do you make these mergers and acquisitions work?
Well, we've been successful with some of them. Some are in progress and some are brand new. So I here leap into the risk of having to correct myself in the next podcast, which would be fine because I think that everything you do, you learn from it and then you improve up on it. And before I like conclude on that, I just wanted to make one point on what we said earlier. To build a great company, I think stop looking too much on the bottom line. Stop looking too much on the comp plan. Stop looking too much on everything that you do on marketing and making it fancy and being cool and all of those things. And start really drilling into, are you creating a product that makes a difference for your consumer? Because if you keep on getting a better and better product for your consumer, the loyalty with the people you have will go up, and the attraction for the people that are not with you yet will also go up. And that's how you truly build brands, is that you put your resources into developing the best there is in your category, and that will draw people to you, and then you'll get a premium payment, and then the margins, the balance sheet, and everything else takes care of itself in the end. 25 customers becomes easy. The retention between the partners becomes easy. So I think that that's the big project that I'm working on, why we want to own from algae to end consumer, the entire chain with the network marketing sales engine in between, providing the first-class service. So that's really what we're working on. Now, there is I need to tell this before the mergers and acquisitions, because when people come in, they have an identity. We have an identity. Some of the companies have been around for 15, 20 years. Some have been around for 10, 15 years. Some are big, some are smaller. I think in the upcoming future, there will be companies that have been around much longer than we have, that is now going to come in and they're going to merge into us. So my 3 simple rules is, do I like the people? But if I don't like the key people that will set it together, it's going to be very difficult. Number 2, do they share our corporate values? So do they understand the customer first? Do they buy into personal and professional development? Do they like innovation, meaning that if you can't improve on the product, we should get a new science team. If you can't improve on the tech, you should get a new tech team. So do they like innovations? And there is multiple of those values that we have. And then do we share some of those personal values? Can we trust that they will uphold our brand? Will they behave? Will they act? And that's the 2 first step. And then number 3, if those 2 checks out, before we go in and make the final deal, they have to buy into that they are coming on our journey. So that the identity that they have, we will open up pockets and rooms for them to feel at home, but it is going to be the march to 100 million customers. That's the journey that we're on. And the hero has to be clear. The hero is the balance test and the balance oil or center. Even if we launched gut health testing, which have a lot more interest on the internet right now, and we could show up on 100 podcasts talking about it everywhere because there is a huge interest for it. What's our hero is that the cell membrane health, that's what we provide, and we do that with a balance test and a balance oil. And every other product, including the gut health test, which is our own test, should support that. So if there is a weight loss, it should support that. If there is an energy, it should support that. Everything should support the hero, because then people are still on a clear mission towards what the vision is of Zinzino.
That's a superpower that you have, that you all have as a company, is having focus. Leonardo da Vinci says, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, and that's a quote in Built to Last for a reason. And so hearing real life stories of what you guys do and how you keep the hero product, because it's so easy to get distracted these days, right? And get in the hype fatigue and new launch. And then it takes so long for the field to figure out to go in one direction, right?
Yeah, and if you're copying others, you will not be the original. Like sometimes you could build a good company on it, but you're not the original. And I believe, yes, we have products that are just like other people's product, because that category is not our hero category. But I think in your hero category, spend the time, dig into product, make the best there is in the world, own the entire manufacturing if you can. If you can't, then have a dream about it. And 20 years from now, you'll be able to do what we did, walk into a situation where we could create something that completely changes the outcome of our company, being the leader of the entire industry of what we sell in our hero on the manufacturing side, from algae to omega. It's like, it really fires me up to do that. But stop worrying so much about what the others do. Focus on your hero, and that will make you great. Then people will know your identity, and they would want to follow that identity.
You briefly touched earlier on being a publicly traded company. What do you feel like some of the unique advantages are in this day and age and in direct selling in being a publicly traded company?
So number one, why we did it was, again, because we wanted to have equal opportunity. And when we wanted other people to have shares, you needed to give them a platform to trade on. So when we did our IPO, we asked for no cash. We just put it in the stock market. We were debt-free. We had money in the bank, and we were paying dividends. So we didn't need any money. That was not, I didn't sell any shares. I've actually only bought shares since we put it into the stock market in 2010, I think it was 2011, and then from 2014 at the NASDAQ. Now, the transparency that is in being public is great. Our sales numbers is published every month, so you can't pretend like anything. Our earnings is published every quarter, so you can't say that you're debt-free and then a debt all of a sudden shows up. You can only do that for a quarter of the time, so you have to be true to what you communicate. And then there is an incredible discipline in being listed, because you're checked by every one of your owners and the auditors and the stock market on a monthly and quarterly basis. And if you deliver what you promised, they reward you for it. If you don't deliver quite what you promised, then they take away some of your value, and the short sellers appear and they try to drive down your stock. And then you get disciplined in increasing your profit margins, improving on your processes, implementing new technology for cost reductions, and you become better that way. And that's why I'm thrilled to be in the stock market. And then the last part, if you then become popular, you get a great evaluation, you print your own currency that you can use for mergers and acquisitions. And that's one of the reasons why we have the capital to acquire that many companies, because most of the money we spent is printed. We print new shares, we give it to them. For us, it's sort of free, it costs the shareholders, but for them it's real value. They can sell it tomorrow and collect cash for it.
So I remember earlier you were talking about your wife and how she was against starting right with the omega and the testing and all of that stuff. And then she said, fine, if it works for you. And she was very, very active. Is she still active now?
She is the reason why I'm where I am today, because I remember when I wanted to quit, when I was ready to give up everything, and I said, we'll go the traditional route. This is too difficult. I can't take more of the backstabbing. I can't take more of people like that don't believe in us or say wrong things and so on. And she looked me in my eyes and she said, no, we're people that finish what we started. And Hilda, she built to president in her comp plan on her own position. I built to president in her comp plan on my own position. We were fighting about who could qualify each one of the trips, the first. I mean, we've bought for 20 years, we've bought 2 tickets to our annual conference. Each year we buy the ticket. So there is no freebies just because we're owners in the company. We work in the field like everyone else. And she's very competitive. She's very driven. She's just absolutely amazing. And then one little thing on having a marriage inside of building a network marketing, field leadership, or just being entrepreneurs and building a company together. I think deciding up on some very strong pillars in your life is important. And from our common mentor, we learned at a very young age that we needed to set some like absolutes. So when we got married on 3 things that we wanted to achieve in our marriage. And that was that we wanted it to be everlasting. And then we decided that it's going to be ever growing, because I don't think if you're not growing, that it's possible to make it last. Because if you don't grow together, you grow apart. And then we want it to be wildly romantic, because then you have the chemistry and you don't have all of the struggles that is often lost if you don't have the chemistry. And the chemistry brings us together, and we're a unity. And I think for our field, when we go on stage together, they can see that. And I also love that, because we become a role model also in that area, not only for money making or a vision casting and so on, but having a family of 3 small kids, running global operations in 50 countries and doing all of that together with both of us having an equal role, I think is a great model for, or at least it's what we wanted. And I hope it's a great model.
DSN has been the biggest proponent of personal development and leadership development within one's organization. And you've got the unique experience of both the corporate and the field. So you've seen both sides. You had the struggle for 4 years. So you saw that side, then obviously had a ton of success. What advice would you give to the field?
Of course, take action, like just do it. But here is the problem. You have people that have goals. They've made plans. They've set aside the time. They've planned out their calendar. Then they have written the list, and then they're ready for that step to take action, but they're not taking action. And one of the things that we always struggle with as field leaders is to get those beautiful candidates. Like, you go, why aren't they just doing? Or you had a person at rank advance 4 times, and then they stop doing. They can't take the action anymore. And one of the things that I've been working on is to understand what's the process that leads to action. Because it sounded now like I presented, you set the goal, they make the plan, they build a list even, they even know how to invite, but they're not doing it. What is the process behind that? And what I've found is that your attitude is everything. Now, you have heard that before. That's not anything unique. But what is attitude? Well, attitude, I believe, is a combination of 2 things. It's what you're thinking. So you got to be 51% towards the positive. And then it's what you're feeling. So that's your behavior. So now, if attitude is thinking and feeling put together, so the sum of those 2, we can then say, okay, how do we influence the attitude of people? Because when we influence the attitude, they're more likely to take the action. Because if they're feeling where they're thinking right and they're feeling good, they're very likely to take action. Now, how do you influence that? Well, there is a couple of things. So motions comes before emotions. So you simply ask them to just stand up and jump up and down for 60 seconds, and their attitude will be elevated. It's not complicated. Or you ask them to go in front of the mirror and do the mirror technique. I can teach that whole thing. But talking positively, so when they verbalize their positivity to themselves, they raise their feelings. So this is the first step of taking action. Not everyone with a great attitude takes action. So then we go to step number 2. If you get them into personal and professional development, they learn about product, they learn about comp-plan, they learn about themselves, and they grow, then they become more confident. So if you have know somebody with a great attitude and confidence that have a dream or a goal and a plan and all of these things in place, they're very likely to call someone, and they're very likely to be successful when they call them. And then if they still aren't getting it right, then look at the reason for doing it, the motive behind it. Because if their motive is clarified, and sometimes part-time, they've got a full-time job, they're like an executive or a salesperson at their job, and those are like, they have all the talents, they have all the context, they say that they want to do it, but they can't do it because the $5,000 a month that they can see that they could reach in a few months doesn't really bring it home for them. So how do you bring more meaning into their life, meaning that if you do this, this is going to fulfill these things that you can fulfill in the company you're working with today. Then when all of those 3 are aligned, 100% of your team is taking action. So that's what I would say is the number 1 skill to learn as a leader is how do you get people that wants to take action to overcome the problems that they have, which then leads them to taking the action. Number one is attitude. Number two, knowledge, you grow in confidence. Number three, give them more meaning behind why they're doing it, and you will have a team that goes 100% up every single year.
I would love to hear your vision for the company in the next 3 to 5 years.
So we just celebrated 20 years, which is kind of like both good and negative. It took so long. We didn't quite reach the dream that we had. We wanted to have 1 million active customers on subscription. We only got to just around 650,000, but we do sell over 1 million products every month to those customers, so we're happy with that part of it. We did over 1 million tests, but what we're doing is that we're building something so unique. I'm going to pick up my little test there and say a few things about that, because every time we take this test, well, that individual gets an answer. They wake up, they understand something brand new in their life. It's a new knowledge, and it's kind of an eye-opener, and you can never unsee it. It's like the food, what I thought was healthy, the nutrition I thought was healthy, the omegas I thought was working, either they are working or not, and this reveals that to you. But it does something for the company that is as important, and that is that it drives up demand. So every time you do a test, we drive up demand of omega-3. Every time we do a test, we drive up demand because that person will consume more, plus the people that that person talks to would be curious and take a test. So the test drives up the demand. Now, we're a tiny little company. We're going to end this year probably 2025, $350 million US dollars, somewhere around that line. And we've done 1.5 million tests. That's not a lot. If you look at the US, we've tested some 40, 50,000 people. But if you dig a little bit more into those numbers, we could find now 10 European countries that have tested more than 1% of their population. Then we can find one European country, Norway, my home country, that we've tested more than 2%. And then there is one tiny little country, Iceland, where we've tested 3%. What we think over the next 2, 3, 4 years is that these numbers will be applied to many more markets. So when US is closing up on 0.5% to 1%, then US sales alone will be 350, 400 million. When US gets to 1%, we're going to pass $1 billion in the US market alone. So over the next 3 to 4 years, you will see our company keeping this momentum that we have. Maybe it's 50% growth a year. Maybe we drop to 31 year. Maybe we go to 71 year. But over that period of time, I think that we will hit $1 billion. Now, most companies hitting $1 billion kind of get stagnant just before or just after. There isn't that many companies in our profession that got into 3 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion. We had 2, now we're back to 0, or 40 billion or 100 billion. And I want our company to be the first one that can break through all of these records. And how are we going to do that? What's different with us? Well, when we test another 1 million people, it drives up demand. So the demand never stops before everyone on the planet is tested. So our market every year going forward is just going to be better and better and more popular, and more people will do it, and more companies will copy us, and everyone that copies us, I'm celebrating because that drives up the demand. And now remember, there is only supply for 65 million on the conventional method. We're building the supply for the hundreds of millions out there. So for me, it's not a dream anymore to get to $1 billion. It will be a big achievement. That's something that's going to happen. It's a dream to get to 100 million customers because that's 50 billion in sales, 3 billion more than the Coca-Cola company. And I think that we bring more health into the world than them. So I'll be very proud of that. But even beyond that, there isn't really any limit because 8 billion people should know their score. 8 billion people should restore their food sourcing, and we will create it, sell it to everyone, and then Zinzino will be the #1 company that owns like the direct-to-consumer model, and that's what we're aiming for. And When will we stop? We won't stop. We will keep on innovating until we hit our targets.
Well, Ørjan, you've got an incredible wife, 3 amazing kids. You're going through many mergers and acquisitions. You're building, you're training, you're insanely busy. We greatly appreciate you making time to come in the studio and share all of your insights and your vision. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.